There was a woman who was at Bethany College in West Virginia, near Bethany, West Virginia. And this is a historic site for the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. Bethany was the home residence for Alexander Campbell, one of the Disciples of Christ founders. And she was involved in the college as a student and as a guide and as tour coordinator. She would arrange for tours and people to take others on tours as people came to visit this historic site in disciple tradition. One day, the president of the college talked to her and told her that he wanted her to guide this particular individual who was coming for a tour. And so she took off with the man and was giving the tour, and they walked and they talked. And at one point, he said, "I understand that you're on scholarship." And she said, "Yes, I am. I'm doing fine, and it's great to be on this scholarship. But you turned down more money, I understand." And she replied, "Well, yes, I'm getting by. I really don't need any more," as if there ever is a college student on scholarship who doesn't need a little more. He knew that she was living a very meager life. And then he said to her, "You're not a good Christian." And that stopped her in her tracks. And she said, "What do you mean?" And he said to her, "The first thing a Christian has to do is receive." She didn't think anything more about it, but about a week later, a package arrived for her. No return address, just a box wrapped in brown paper with Fragile all over. She opened the box, and in it was a bottle of Chanel No. 5, not cologne, but perfume, the really expensive stuff, which would have been a treasure to a young college woman on scholarship. It was from the man because he wanted her to remember his words. The first thing a Christian has to do is receive. Today is Easter. Christ is risen. It is the gift of new life. Have you received the gift? When you think about it, Holy Week, from Palm Sunday to Easter, is like our world in miniature. There are moments of celebration and great joy, like the parade and the alleluias and hosannas that accompanied Jesus as he entered Jerusalem. There are moments when we feel anger and righteous indignation, and we see injustices, and we want to flip tables over and drive out those who are abusing others. There are moments we feel that way. There are moments when we see that around us are people who are doing their best to live faithfully, those who are endeavoring to teach, those who are guiding with their wisdom and joining in life together. And then there are ones who would abuse the power that they have and lord it over others. As Jesus did when he saw all the people coming to hear his words, but saw the abuse of the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the scribes and the priests. And it saddened him. And he warned against that. There are moments when we are divided about how to interpret something. As when the woman came and poured the oil on Jesus' head and Jesus' feet to honor Jesus, to give thanks with an extravagant gift for his grace and mercy and love. But others saw what a waste. That money could have been used differently to other purposes, and we need to be so careful with that money and do what we should with it. And they were divided even among the disciples. And there was a meal with friends. There was a woman, an elderly woman, who gave, in a sense, all that she had out of her love for God, sacrificial giving. There was betrayal. There was prayer. There was agony. There was deception. There was shame. There was guilt. There was death. All of those happened in this Holy Week. And on this early morning, the women walked numbly along the path to the tomb, hearts weighed down by an unbearable grief. It seems like all the goodness in the world has been crushed. All hope is gone. The best in the world has been put to death on a cross and lies broken and buried in a tomb, and there is nothing left but to go and prepare that body for burial. And so, with hearts that are weighed down by grief, those women go to the tomb. And we too have moments like all of those of Holy Week, but in particular, sometimes those moments that are like that sorrow with which they went to the tomb, those women, bears most heavenly upon us when we feel crushed and hopeless, and all the good has been driven from the world, and we walk around in our world like that, numbly, just one foot in front of the other, just a rote response, because all we can force ourselves to do is to keep on going in the midst of all the world throws upon us, and we feel weighed down and crushed, and our spirits are weary. The women reach the tomb, and they see the unexpected. They expect to see that stone there. They expect to see a tomb that has not been disturbed in some way. And what are they feeling at that moment? Confusion, anger, sorrow. What else can happen? The Lord has been killed. He has been broken and buried. And now someone violates the tomb. Surely those thoughts in that instant fly through their mind. The stone has been rolled away. They rush inside. Nobody. But the linen clothes are there. And they are confused. If someone's going to take a body, then why would they leave the linen clothes? They do not understand. And in that moment of confusion, there is revelation. 2 divine messengers appear before them and tell them he is not here. Why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here. He is risen. They have fallen to the ground in fear at the sight of them, but their hearts now leap up within them. He is not here. He has risen. And the angels say, remember his words. Remember what he told you. Now, these women were among those who traveled and were frequently with Jesus. They knew the things that he had said about how he would be killed and that he would be buried and on the 3rd day rise. But nobody had any idea what those words meant. It was beyond understanding until Easter happened. How could you make sense of that? So at this moment, is there complete understanding? No. But there is the beginning of unwrapping this gift. This gift of resurrection to them, to all who believe. And so they rush out. They go flying out and tell the disciples. But the disciples find it overwhelming and unbelievable. And so this news is met with doubt. Who really can blame them? It is overwhelming. It's more than they can take in. They have been battered and they have been broken in spirit and in heart. And it's more than they can hope to believe. And so what is the response? What is our response? When we have been battered down in our lives, when we have faced those moments that overwhelm us, when we go through regular life, everyday life, with its ups and downs, with those things that lift us up and those things that take us to the bottom pits of despair. How do we respond? what is the message for us? One reason that I am in this robe today is because it gives me the chance to wear this stole. It's my Christmas and Easter stole. On one side is the cross with the Easter lily. On the other side is the star and the cradle. It was given to me by my grandmother when I was ordained. It has particular meaning to me because in March of 1994, she was dying with cancer. She was in a care home. My parents were up there with her outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we knew the time was close. I was the pastor at the time at Westside Christian Church in Topeka, Kansas. It was a Wednesday afternoon, late afternoon, and it was a time on Wednesday when we had a lot going on. Youth groups, adult groups, handbell choir, the regular singing choir, a lot going on. And I got a phone call. I was in my office, and it was my parents. And they said, it's going to be very soon now, probably hours, maybe a day. And my heart was heavy, and we talked, and I said I'd make arrangements as soon as I could, and let me know when, and I'll be ready and get there when I can. So with a heavy heart, I said goodbye to my parents and knew that my grandmother's time was at hand. And with a heavy heart, I went and opened my office door, and I was greeted by a sound. It was the handbell choir, and they were practicing Christ the Lord is risen today. And I will never forget it. Here I was with heavy heart, crushed by the imminent death of one I held so dear, feeling despair, sadness, grief. I open the door and hear sounds of the promise of life. I hear resurrection. I hear new life. I hear that in all things we are held in the hands of the one who has gone before us, Christ the Lord. He has faced all that we face, especially in that week we call Holy Week. All the ups and downs and joys and triumphs and struggles and pain that we feel in our human life, he felt and he faced. And he has overcome them. Christ the Lord is risen. And the best message of all is that any cross we face is not the last word. The New Testament is written to assure us that God's love and grace and life will win out always. Not sin, not death. We are held in that promise. There's one more thing that we need to do this morning, because there's one more character in this story and we haven't mentioned, and that's Peter. As Peter, alone among the disciples, hears what the women have to say and gets up and goes to see for himself. And he goes and looks in and sees the linen clothes just as the women said. But he doesn't know what to make of it. And he goes away wondering at what all of this means. Now think about Peter. He's been with Jesus since the very beginning. He was the first one to say, "You are the Christ." But he did not understand really what he was saying, and no one could until the death of Christ and the resurrection of Christ defines and gives meaning and hope and life to this Christ. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Peter did not understand at that time. He is struggling now. He wants to hope, to believe, but he is also dealing with great shame and guilt and pain and anguish. For he promised Jesus at this table, "I will not deny you. I will stand by you always." And Jesus said, "Before the cock crows, you will have denied me 3 times." And that is exactly what happened. And so Peter may very well be wondering, is this even possible for me? Does this include me, grace and love and mercy with what I have done? How can I be worthy of that? I am not. I have sinned horribly. I have denied him. And so you and I at times are like Peter. Will we receive the gift? Did Peter receive the gift? We know from the rest of the New Testament that the answer to that is yes. He opened his heart to that grace and love, and it changed everything in his life. And that is what is there for us. We are here because we have already made a claim of what Jesus means to me. So what do we need on Easter? We need to hear what the divine messenger said. Remember his words. Remember. Remember that Jesus makes all the difference in the world. You know it. So today, the question for us this Easter is, will you receive the gift again? And my prayer for all of us, the world, you and me, is that we would remember the cross, the empty cross. Because the empty cross takes us to the tomb. The empty tomb. Because he is not here, he is risen. And it is my prayer that we would hear that, we would remember his words, and joy would well up within us, and we would go rushing out from there into new life. That's what Easter is. Christ the Lord is risen. He is risen indeed. Amen.